All right. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, wherever you are. So welcome and thank you for joining us today. My name is Lilette. I am based in IDP Singapore, your host and moderator for today's IELTS Masterclass workshop. So with me today are my co-host and my co-moderator as well. So let's begin first with Janice from Indonesia. Hi, Janice. Please welcome our participants.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yanis from Indonesia. Hope you enjoy the session tonight. Yeah, thank you.
All right, and another one is Wei. Wei is from Myanmar, our newest test center. Hi, Wei. Please welcome our participants today.
Hello everyone, I'm Wei from Yangon, Myanmar, and I hope you can get a lot of useful information for your test today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janice and Wei. So for tonight, we will be your co-host, your moderator. So if you have any questions, any burning questions that you may have, you may direct them to any one of us. So wondering what is this IELTS Masterclass workshop? So basically, this session focuses on 4 IELTS skills. So the listening, reading, writing, and speaking. So from this workshop, we're hoping that you'll get practical tips on how to enhance your English skills and avoid common mistakes. And also, you'll better understand the assessment criteria and how your scores will be scored. And finally, you'll learn from an official IELTS expert who will guide you and answer your questions. So if you are joining us via Zoom, feel free to leave your questions in the Q&A box. And if you are following along with us on Facebook, so just for everyone's information, we are live on Facebook. Please share your questions in the comments section and we will read this out to our IELTS expert at the end of the webinar. So finally, our IELTS expert today is a highly trained educator who has been teaching the English language and IELTS preparation at tertiary institution in Singapore for the past 20 years and has helped set up a writing center in one of the universities she's lecturing in. So if you've been joining us in the past few months of our masterclass, you may have seen them or in any of our paid workshop as well. So without further ado, let us all welcome our IELTS expert today, Mei Koh. Over to you, Mei.
Thanks, Lilette. Thanks for the introduction. Hi, everybody, and welcome to our IELTS Masterclass. Again, thanks for the help from Lilette, Wei, and Yanis throughout the workshop. So yeah, I hope that I can share with you any tips and things that I know from all the years that I have been involved with IELTS and IDP. Feel free to keep your questions in mind. Any questions that can be answered via the chat or the online, we can answer that, or you can keep your questions to the end where we will have a live Q&A. All right, so in this session, we're going to talk about both the academic and the general training. So just hang in there for both of them. Again, as Lilette said, we hope you will gain practical tips. And I'll introduce you to the scoring system so that you know what to look out for, and also how to avoid costly mistakes. If there are many people that have done this test before, and any mistakes that they've done, we will share with you so that you don't, make that the same errors. Okay. All right. So there might be some polling at the end there. We'll leave that. Now you have an IELTS Masterclass pack, which was probably sent to you. It's in PDF. If you don't, you can try to get that. But I will refer to it. There are some practice questions, but the pages that we'll be looking at are mostly the assessment pages toward the end, where you actually have a list of the band scores and the criteria. All right, so just a few things to remind everyone of is to improve your English every day. So IELTS is more than just a test and like an academic test where you just do practice tests and so on. You need to, it's a test of your competency in in English, so you have to use your English in order to improve it, right? I'll describe to you how the components of the test are broken down so that you know how to assess yourself and how to look out for things in particular areas that you need to work on. All right, we'll look at the language skills and obviously the mistakes not to do, right? Now, as you know, the test is divided into two types, the academic test and the general training test. So most of you have already probably decided which ones of these you are taking. Both of them are for different purposes. The academic one focuses on academic skills, academic writing, essay writing, report writing, whereas general training involves sort of more generic workplace kind of things and life skills kinds of questions, right? So that's how it goes. Now, IELTS is not scored by percentage or raw scores, but descriptors. So we go from 0 to 9, 0 meaning someone didn't even answer the questions or something, but 9 is considered an expert user, someone who's probably more native, almost native language speaker. All right, so most of you who are aiming for, whether it's migration, whether it's general training or academic, you're aiming at 7 and above for most people. So 7 is a good user, 8 is considered a very good user. So looking at some of this, you can kind of, looking at the band scores, especially in the PDF, you document, you can actually see what you need to do to be at that level 7, band 7 or above, okay? So, let's see here. All right, just to familiarize all of you with this. Now, if you haven't done this test yet, just make a note that academic and general training share commonalities in some areas. So the listening test and the speaking test are the same in terms of the structure and the questions. So listening is 30 minutes, 4 sections and 40 questions. And then the speaking test is about 14 minutes, up to 14 minutes. It has 3 parts. So the reading and writing, however, is different for the academic. So the kinds of material you're given to read and the questions you're given for writing are different from that of general training. So I'll go into more detail as we look into the different components, okay? Just remember that the total test time is 2 hours and 44 minutes. If you're doing the paper-based test, you will have an extra 10 minutes transferring time for the listening component. So, but again, if you're doing the computer-based, there is no additional time given to you. Okay, so just remember that. The speaking, as I said, 11 to 14 minutes, and it has 3 parts to it. It's the same for everyone, okay? Okay, so, oops. All right, so let's move on here. Okay, and also you can decide which you prefer, computer-based or paper-based. Essentially, it is about what you're most comfortable with in terms of the style of test taking. Some people are still, have a preference for paper-based. That's what they're used to. But of course, computer-based is more convenient in some ways. Also, if you look at the results, when the results are released, computer 3 to 5 days turnaround time for the results, whereas for paper-based, it's about 13 days. So you can decide based on that. You can check with your administrators what's best in your situation. Okay, so let's look at the first component, the reading component. Okay. The academic reading. So the structure of this section is actually the same, but it's the reading passages that are different. So We have reading, which is overall 60 minutes, 3 sections and 40 questions. So roughly about 20 minutes you should spend on each section. The kind of reading you'll get for the academic test are of topics of general interest, and they're fairly long articles written in logical, argumentative, or descriptive kind of way. Now, you will only get informational type of writing, so you won't be getting any fiction or poetry or that kind of, or stories, those kinds of things. It's basically information, like extended magazine articles, but of a more academic nature. Okay. The general training reading has, again, the same structure, 60 minutes, 3 sections and 40 questions. But the topics are of general interest, meaning they could be things that you see every day in everyday writing, newspaper articles, classifieds, instructional manual kinds of things, right? So more practical, based on daily life kind of writing. Maybe one out of these could be a longer article, right? All right, let's look at overall for both types of tests, the general training and the academic. Basically, it's trying to test your reading skills, not so much your content knowledge. So it's important for you to remember that. You are not, hopefully you have some experience with the topics that come in front of you, but basically most of the information you need will be in the passage, right? So basically in reading, we do 3 things. So we do skimming, scanning, and reading for detail. Now, what's skimming? Skimming is when you are in a hurry, you want to know, for example, in the morning, you look at your phone and you want to know what's the latest news for the day. You will just kind of skim through the headlines in the online news sites and just kind of get a gist of the headlines, just to see what's happening, right? Now, if you're interested, a little more interested, then you might read for more detail. Scanning is a skill that we use all the time when we are looking for something specific. So if we are doing, for example, looking at Excel spreadsheets, we're looking for numbers or a particular name, or we scroll through our contact list to find somebody's name, that's involves what we call scanning, where it's a very targeted, you have something specific you're looking for and you look quickly to find it. Now, reading is a very complex activity, and it sometimes involves, doing all 3 of these at the same time or one after the other very quickly. So we're just trying to explain, the different skills there, but you are expected to use all of those skills. Now, let's have a quick look at question types. So we have multiple choice questions, identifying questions, matching questions, completion questions, and short answer questions. So multiple choice questions are in the same order as information in the text. So you kind of answer as you go along. Identifying questions. Now these ones, some people find it a little tricky because it's the true, false, not given, the yes, no, not given. So people often ask about what's the difference between the false and the not given. But basically they're asking you to verify certain whether it's just basic information provided by the article or the author's view of something, okay? Basically, you are not expected to bring your outside knowledge on these things. All the answers should be found in the article, right in front of you for the test. True and yes means that you have information in the text that verifies that something is true or that is there, right? The statement is there in the text. False or no means you cannot find any information in the text to, or the information that you get tells you that this is not true or that it's completely false. Not given is the one where you can't find any evidence to prove either true, yes, or false or no, right? So yeah, that's a bit tricky. There are some things called information to matching information to a paragraph. They might give you headings, which they say you have to match to which paragraph, features to paragraphs, or sentence endings to paragraphs. There's also completion questions where they give you a sentence, half a sentence, you have to finish it. They might give you a diagram or a table or a summary of notes, and you're supposed to put in the missing information, right? Or might have a diagram with labels and you put in the missing information. Of course, the information must come from the passage. Now, they have something called a short answer question. So in IELTS, the short answer question is very short. Okay, it's not a paragraph. It's usually a phrase, maybe 2 or 3 words. Now, the trick with the short answer questions is that they will tell you how many words you should write. If they will say things like no more than 3 words, which means you can have 1 word, 2 words, or 3 words, but you can't have more than that. Now that's important because if you put 4 words and they ask you for no more than 3, even if your answer is correct, they won't give you the mark, okay? So please read the instructions carefully on that. All right, let's keep going here. Now, here's a sample of a piece of reading. And here, let's try this out together. It's about identifying the accuracy of information, okay? So now the question is, do the following statements agree with the information given in the passage, right? Do these statements agree with, right? So kind of trying to match that. The answers are true, false, or not given. Now, it's always good to scan the questions before you start looking at the text so that you know ahead of time what you are roughly, trying to find, what kind of information, right? So we see here in a quick scan, now you scan for key words, phrases like Aboriginal Australians, ancestors, Aborigines, genetically diverse, okay? So there's lots of phrases here and we know they're talking about Aboriginal Australians, who are also called Aborigines. Of course, other countries have different names for the Aboriginal people, right? Aboriginal basically means the original people that lived in that place that was first there. So I'm going to read this paragraph. You can follow along with that and see if you can spot the answers, and then we can try to answer this together. All right. So modern humans ventured out of Africa some 80,000 years ago. While the ancestors of Aboriginal Australians were part of this migration, recent genomic analysis reveals a rare and unexpected later development. Genomics, okay, so notice here it says, it gives you a definition. So it says genomics, or the study of a population's gene structure, suggests that Aboriginal Australians arrived in a single migration to Australia at least 50,000 years ago. Despite this, however, as Aboriginal Australians adapted to different conditions in the continent over many thousands of years, a remarkable genetic diversity resulted. This means that there is a greater genetic diversity between Aboriginal people living in the east and west of Australia than there is between the much more culturally diverse races like the indigenous people of Siberia and North America. Okay, so you see some phrases, similar words here, Aboriginal Australians. You see that quite often. Then you have modern humans. They talk here about genetic diversity, and then they kind of mention cultural diversity. And they mention the word Indigenous people. So another word for Aboriginal people is Indigenous people. It means the original people. So it's important that you pick out the key phrases just so that you know the main subject. Now, the thing is here, so we kind of have an idea of what they're talking about. They're talking about the origins of people, right? Modern humans ventured out of Africa some 80,000 years ago. Now, you are not expected to agree with some, some people say, well, they might argue with this fact, right? But in IELTS, you just answer from the text. There's no opinion here. It's just whether the answer is here or not. So let's look at, what you can do is type your responses in the chat. So now question number 1 says, Aboriginal Australians are descended from the inhabitants of Africa. So is that true, false, or not given? So let's see what people say. So question number 1, okay, most of you have got it correct. The answer is true. Okay, so because in the first sentence, that's what it says here. Modern humans ventured out of Africa some 80,000 years ago, while the ancestors of Aboriginals were part of this migration, right? They were part of this migration, the migration of modern humans out of Africa. So look for similar phrases that, the meaning is the same, right? Now, do not look for identical words because they generally won't use identical, that you're looking for phrases that mean the same thing or synonyms, okay? All right, so the answer is true for the second one. Oops, ancestors of the Aborigines settled in Australia about 80,000 years ago. Is that true, false, or not given? All right, everyone is correct. The answer is false. False because, and some of you very quickly picked up on this, that 80,000 here does not refer to when the ancestors came over, but here, Aboriginal Australians arrived in a single migration to Australia at least 50,000 years ago, okay? So what they'll do sometimes is put what we call a distractor, so the 80,000 is a distractor from the 50, and just to get you confused, right? So the answer is false for number 2. Oh, Aboriginal Australians are the most genetically diverse race in the world. Okay, is there anything in this passage that tells you this is true, false, or not given? That they're the most genetically diverse race? What do you think? Again, correct, not given. Okay, the answer is not given here. They talk about the greater genetic diversity between Aboriginal people who live in one part of Australia versus another group in another part, but it does not say it's the most genetically diverse race. So you have to read carefully here. So in this case, reading for detail will help you to avoid, problems when you answer the question. Okay. Yeah, I know someone asked a good question. Is it for question 2, why can it be not given since at least, oh, no, it shouldn't be not given because they do give numbers here, right? So, so the answer for number 3 is here, and it is not given, all right? So this is the kind of tricky things that you will see. So what we recommend is that you look for synonyms. So for example, settled in Australia means the same thing as arrived in a single migration to Australia, or to look out for distractors such as genetic diversity and cultural diversity, which are 2 different things, but it's there to confuse you. Okay, so that's just a test creation technique. So what's our general advice for reading? Basically, read the questions first and then skim the text. Underline the key words. Note the number of words allowed in your answer. So that's where, when you read the instructions, is it 3 words they want or no more than 3 words? Sometimes it's no more than 2 words. Don't worry about words you don't know. Unusual words will be explained within the text. If the word isn't explained, it's not important, okay? So any specialized vocabulary, they will give you a glossary or something. But other than that, you're not expected to know, all the words, right? Now, this is good test taking technique. Do not waste time on any one question you're having trouble with, right? If you're kind of stuck, just push yourself to keep going, because you don't have time. If you waste 5 minutes on one question, you're losing time for answering the rest of the questions. And you may not have time to complete all the questions then. In IELTS, 1 mark for each right answer. There's no penalty for wrong answer. So it's better to put an answer than to leave an answer blank. Okay. Okay, any questions so far about the reading component? If you want to see the not band scores, let's see some samples. It says there's a page 23 of the Masterclass pack. Okay. All right, let's see here. All right, so let's go to the next. Okay, someone has requested to go back to the types of questions. I can do that. I'll just do it real quick because we need to move on. This one? Yeah. Okay, so just take a quick snapshot of that if you want. Okay. All right, so let's move on now to the next part, which is about the writing component. And that's, that's a critical part of the test. Generally, writing is the one that most people have difficulty with. Speaking is relatively easy for most people. Writing, I would say, is probably the most difficult one. Okay, but again, it depends on what you're strong with in terms of your English language, right? Okay, so let's move to the structure of the test. So for both the academic and the general training, the writing test is only 60 minutes and you have 2 tasks. The first task is smaller and supposed to take less time. The second task is basically a longer task, which is writing an essay. So we suggest no more than 20 minutes for the first task. 40 minutes should be left for your main essay. Okay, so timing is crucial. You need to keep an eye on your timing. You are responsible for dividing that 60 minutes up yourself, right? They don't control the amount of time you take for each task, right? You're just given a full 60 minutes and you have to complete both, okay? So in the academic test, the task 1 is very different. The task 1 is basically like a little report. They will give you some sort of numerical information or information captured in a diagram or a table or a chart. Or they could give you diagrams of a process, a cycle, how something is made, what is the process of something. They might even give you a map and ask you to describe it. Basically, you are using descriptive language. You are being objective, but you have to describe what you see. But you also have to talk about the trends that you see. So it's not just one thing. So they could give you something that has changed over time, and you have to note what the changes are. So things like maps, they could show you a map of an area 10 years ago, and then a map of an area 10 years later, and then you have to compare the two. There's comparison contrast. You will not usually get a single graph, but you will get multiple graphs or multiple charts, and you have to compare and contrast them. Okay, they're usually on the same topic. Now, the only thing you should not do in the academic task 1 is to give your opinion. Okay, the report is an objective report. You only report what you see, not what you project or, from your past knowledge. Task 2 for academic is basically an argumentative essay. If those of you who are familiar with the basic 5-paragraph essay, you can use that structure. But basically, they'll give you some type of question that is kind of debatable and ask you what your opinion is, to state your opinion and so on, right? For general training, the structure is the same, 2 tasks, 60 minutes, but the task 1, the task 2 is the same, right? We have task 2 is the same, you write an essay. Task 1 is to write a semi-formal or formal or informal letter, but the format is a letter. So it's very different from the academic, all right? So basically, when you do general training, the IELTS is supposed to assess whether you have skills to do basic writing. So writing a letter would be a basic writing skill for any culture. Like if you were to move to a country, English-speaking country, you have to write letters on occasion, right? So they're testing those kinds of things. More functional, not so much analytical, but the academic one is analytical, right? So let's look at how you will be scored, okay? So you will be scored. So basically there are 4 areas that they're assessing, right? One is task achievement and response. The second one is coherence and cohesion. The next one is lexical resource, which is a fancy way of saying vocabulary. And then there is grammatical range and accuracy, okay? Now, among all these, I'll just put a quick question up to everybody. Which of these 4 components do you think you have most control over and you are most able to score well during the test? Any thoughts about that? Which one of these do you think is easy to score well on the day of the test? Okay, so a variety of responses. Okay, quite a number of you say task achievement. Okay. Okay, so a good combination, but the majority of you say task achievement. Thank you for your response. So I would say task achievement and response, because the day of the test, you get to actually see the question, you know what you need to do, because everything will be stated in the question, right? So if you read the question carefully and you give them all the, answer all the parts of that you're given, then you can actually score well on task achievement, okay? So basically task achievement means, are you answering to the question, right? Or are you off topic, right? If you're slightly off topic, you will definitely get a lower band score, okay? Now, coherence and cohesion, I would put as the second easiest thing to score on, because coherence and cohesion is basically how do you organize your paragraphs so your writing makes sense, for example, you're doing comparison, contrast, that kind of thing. You have to organize your paragraphs. So in both the task 1 and task 2, you must have paragraphing. You cannot have just one paragraph answering the whole question, right? So for task 1, you probably need to have at least 3 paragraphs. For task 2, you need to have at least 4 or 5 paragraphs. Okay. So coherence and cohesion is also things like using connecting words, linking words like therefore, however, and then, any kind of words that link from one paragraph to another, right? And then even within sentences. First, so sequential things, first, next, and then that kind of thing. Lexical resource is not as easy to score because it would depend on the topic you're given that day. And if it's a topic you know very little about or don't have any vocabulary for, then you would run into some difficulty. So the way to have good lexical resource or vocabulary is to be reading things in English and watching programs and shows, whether it's on YouTube or Netflix, watching things in English. Just listening a lot, because the listening and the reading give you the additional vocabulary. Okay, so just memorizing things, words or lists of words isn't going to help you. You're going to have to use the vocabulary. So you have to do all those things together. Read articles, listen to topics, listen to talks about that same topic, right? So you can go by topics, for example. Grammatical range and accuracy is probably the more difficult one to correct, because in writing, we often make mistakes, but we don't see our own mistakes. So you probably need to get someone else who is, whether it's a tutor or someone who can help you look over your writing and spot the common errors that you make. Now, the most common types are, of course, subject verb agreement, tenses, use of tenses. Some people have problems with that. You need to get your punctuation in order, spelling, punctuation, those are kind of important as well. Okay, but a bit harder to change, a lot more work. So lexical resource and grammar is hard to, you have to really put a lot of effort into that. Okay. All right, so let's now look at the academic writing part 1 or task 1. Basically, you are taking visuals and putting them into words. Summarize, so that's a key word, right? Summarize in your words information presented in a graph, table, chart, or a diagram. Okay. Write at least 150 words in about 20 minutes. Now, the 150 words is a minimum. It's not a maximum. You have to write more than 150 words. So you do need to count it, because the people who mark it will be counting the number of words. If you have below 150 words, you will be deducted, penalized at least 1 band score. If you write very little, you will be penalized 2 band scores or more for task achievement. So please make sure you write more than 150 words, okay? So here's an example, and this is quite common, having a bar graph and then a line graph together on the same topic, but different aspects of the same topic. So it says here you should spend about 20 minutes on this task. And we say that's a maximum, because you have to leave all your time for the essay in task 2, because all the time people will, like, if you don't do that, you're going to find you don't have enough time to end your essay, the task 2. Then you leave out your conclusion or something, which is not good. Okay. The charts show the number of Japanese tourists traveling abroad between 1985 and 1995, and Australia's share of the Japanese tourist market. So this is all information, something about Japanese tourists and their habits between the years 1985 and 1995. Now it says here, summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So notice here, first of all, summarize the key information, select and report the main feature. So what they don't want you to do is to just go through, oh, in 1985, the number of Japanese tourists was 5 million. In 1986, right, if you just do that, first of all, it's going to take you way too long. You won't have time to finish this, the description, but it's also not letting them know that you see any, that you group the information. It's important you group the information and you find the trends. So when you look at this and you are thinking, being analytical, straight away, you will see, yes, someone has a question. You can unmute yourself if you'd like to ask. Arbunga, you raised your hand. Do you have a question? No? Okay, you can write it in the chat if you want. That's probably easier.
Okay, maybe we will check with Abdullah.
Huh? Well, yeah, a couple of people are raising their hands. So, okay, so I'll keep talking, and then when you're ready to, when they're ready. Okay, so select and report the main features. What are main features? Main features are when you look at the, for example, highs and the lows. How high does it go? How low does it go? Are there periods where there's similarities? Are there differences? So when you look at these two straight away, your brain says that both charts have a similar trend. Both are trending upward. So there's an increase over the 10-year period, right? Now, although the overall trend is upward, you do see that there's some fluctuations, right? So these are words you should be using: fluctuations, increase, decrease, plateau. Plateau means just, staying the same. And then you need to give things like a description of by how much, by a little, by a lot. So you say, you can use words like dramatic increase for sudden and a lot of increase, or minor, minor for smaller, decrease or whatever. Okay. So, yep, we can put your questions in the chat. That would probably be a little easier. So you can see here now the key points of change. I think that's important. So it's most of the time they're asking you about change over time, whether it's a diagram or it's charts or graphs. You will notice that there are changes. So for example, although both are going up, you notice that in 1990, between 87 and 90, for example, there's a steady increase for the Japanese tourists traveling abroad. But then after 1990, there was a slight drop, but then it increased again in 92 and 93. It stayed the same, and then it continued to increase. So you want to look at the key points of change. Here in the share, Australia's share of the Japanese tourist market, the first, 4 years, there's a steady increase. But then in 1989, it dropped. And in 1990, it continued to increase again to 1994. So that's the next 4 years. And then, and then it decreased slightly. Okay, there was a minor decrease in 95. So you look at the key points of change. Okay, so some people are asking about structure. You must always, both in the task 1 and task 2, have an introduction and a conclusion. Write an introduction, who, what, when, where, all right. The only thing you cannot do is to copy the words from the task that they give you, right, their question. You should paraphrase it. You cannot use the exact language that they use in the question. Highlight key features with figures. Now that's another important thing. So besides giving the key point of change and saying increase, decrease, that kind of thing, you need to give numbers. And you have to be real careful with the numbers because you have to indicate the unit number, right? Is it in millions? Is it dollars? Or are we talking about a number of people? What do the numbers represent? So you have to give a correct the correct type of figure, okay? Now, there's something you need to do, and the overview should be in the introduction and or the conclusion. Basically, an overview is to say, what is the general trend for both? So in this case, the overview would be that both the numbers of Japanese tourists traveling abroad and the Australia's share of the Japanese tourist market were both increased over the 10-year period from 85 to 95, with some minor fluctuations in between. So that would be kind of covering all of it, right? And then of course you give the details. Okay, so here's a sample of an introduction, okay? The chart and graph compare the number of Japanese who spent their holidays overseas with the from 1985 to, so you need to give the years, with the proportion of them who visited Australia, okay? So, oops, sorry, just give me a second. Yeah, so the key is you have to analyze them. You have to compare and contrast both of them together, but you can also describe each one separately, but at the end of the day, you still need to show that you've made the comparison. Okay, somebody was asking that question. Okay. The graph and chart compare the number of, okay, both, right? Plural, so compare is correct. The number of Japanese who spent their holidays overseas from 1985 to 95, with a proportion of them who visited Australia. So that is sort of saying what the information is given is about. Then here is where you highlight key features with figures. Now, this person has chosen to put in the first paragraph a description of the first, the bar graph. So in 1985, only about 5 million Japanese traveled abroad, after which the number increased steadily. By 1990, the figure had more than doubled to 11 million. Apart from a slight drop the following year, the upward trend continued until the end of the period, where numbers reached over 15 million. So look at how selectively they've used the numbers, right? They didn't just go, oh, in 85, it was like that. In 86, it was like, right? You're not just listing things, okay? If you do that kind of listing thing, you'll probably get like a band score of 5 or something like that. So now it's a kind of a balance between having enough figures and not having enough. So, it's important to put the numbers, to make sure the numbers are mentioned quite a bit, okay? So this one is the first graph, and then this one's describing the line graph. Now note that the unit numbers, the unit is given, it's a percentage, okay? So this one is comparing this number of people. This one is just the percentage of people. So they're two very different things. So be careful when you can compare and contrast them. But you must have the symbols, the correct symbols, if it's number, whether it's money or it's percentages, right? Okay. So what is the highest score for task achievement you can get if you don't include figures, right? If you have no numbers, the maximum you can score is a band score 5, where it says, if you look at your criteria at the end of your PDF, it says there may be no data to support the description. So if you have insufficient numbers to no numbers, you'll get band score 5 for task achievement. Okay. Now this is an overview. So you use words like in conclusion, overall, because these are saying that this is the overview. Despite the relatively small proportion of Japanese tourists coming to Australia, the Japanese tourist market corresponded, so again, words like corresponded closely with the growth in Japanese tourism overseas generally, with a trebling of both in the 10-year period. Okay, so it's saying that, you know, there is some correspondence in terms of both were increasing. And it says here trebling of both. So what it's doing is describing the change. So it's not just saying it's increasing, it's saying by how much. So it says here triple, you know, over the 10-year period. So you should use language like that. Okay. It's getting hot here now. Oh. I'm in a very cold place, but it's getting the heater is very hot. So usually I work out of Singapore, but for the time being, I'm in North America. So yeah, it's pretty cold here for springtime. All right, so what is the highest score for task achievement if you don't include an overview? So if you don't have the what we call the main point, right? Your thesis statement, if you will. For an essay, we call it a thesis statement. Basically, the highest you can get is a band 5 if you recount detail mechanically with no clear overview. So if you do that, oh, in this year it was like this, in that year it was, and then you don't say what the trends are and so on, then you will, the maximum you can get is a band 5. Okay. So are you surprised? So band 5 is pretty low and generally doesn't, for academic, that is not a good score. Okay. And remember that all 4 of the components are divided equally. So if there are 4 components and you score a 5 in one, the 5 will pull down. If you do better in the other components, it will pull down all the other scores, right? So let's say you get a 7, 7, 7, 5. Your 5 will drag everything down. So it's not good to have a 5 anywhere in the 4 items, right? So what should you do? Write at least 150 words. Include an overview. Okay, your overview you can put in the introduction or you can put it in the conclusion. Up to you. Select the most important information. So here, this is the important part, being selective and highlighting key changes or points of change or things that are significant. Support your points with figures or examples. Again, data, make sure you have data. Made effective comparisons. Have you used linking words to connect your points? So in addition, you know, so if you're doing adding, then you use in addition to contrast, so you would say in contrast with, as opposed to, that kind of thing. Organized key points into paragraphs and check for mistakes in grammar and spelling, because the grammar and spelling do affect will affect your score as well. What are some common mistakes to avoid? Basically, a lot of people do not support the description with enough numbers or, you know, the data that's shown, right? So they think just maybe giving one number is sufficient and then they don't put any more numbers, right? So the key is to show that you have the capability of writing a report with data in it, okay? The other mistake people sometimes do is try to interpret the data. So it would be like trying to say, well, you know, the number of tourists in Australia was a lot less, you know, this year than last year because, so you're trying to give an explanation for why the data shows the way it does. You are not required to do that for the task 1. You shouldn't do that, okay? So there's no opinion or conjecture or guessing what might happen or projecting into the future. You don't have to do that, okay? Just describe what you see, kind of like a lab report, right? So describe every detail of the information. So again, I've said that a few times that even if just describe detail of the information, it doesn't show that you have any analytical ability, right? What they want to see is the analytical ability, not your ability to just list a bunch of things, okay? You must have at least 3 paragraphs, I would recommend. 1 intro, 1 body, 1 conclusion. That's for task 1. Another mistake people have is not writing the overview. You haven't given, you know, sort of the main points, right? So that's important. Now it says here that there will be times when you're given something called a process, stages of something, how something is made, how something is processed. use words that show the sequence of the process, right? So I think there's some examples in your pack. It might look something like this. So this one is how bricks are manufactured. So in this case, so when they give you diagrams and stuff, they often give you the keywords as well, so make sure you use the keywords, right? If they call it a digger, just use the word digger, right? Clay, what is the stuff it's digging? It's clay. It is put on a metal grid, and then the clay is sifted through the grid onto a roller or a conveyor belt. And then, okay, so if you look at this, you can see that there are sort of the different pictures. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pictures, but you can group them, right? So the first stage is to dig the clay, sift the clay, mix with, and then mold it. So that's like one stage. Then the next stage is to dry it and cool it, right? That's the second stage. And then the third stage is to package it and deliver it. So that's how you group the information so that you can talk about them in a systematic way. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you can say how they're processed, but it's more like making it, right? So here's an example of how you would write it. And in this case, it says first the raw clay is extracted. So it's just divided into, now it says there's 7 steps, but I would divide it into sort of group the steps, right? So the first 3 steps are part of one stage, right? The preparation stage. And then the second stage is the drying stage. Third stage is packing and delivery. So, okay, so you don't have to necessarily follow that. But all right, here we go. Let's move on to general training. So those of you who have been waiting patiently. Now, the writing task 1 for general training is very, very different. Basically, it is just writing a letter. Again, you have 20 minutes. You must write at least 150 words, and you begin your letter as follows: Dear Sir or Madam. Okay. You can make up a name if it's an informal letter. You can, like your friend's name or something. But what they mean here is you don't need to write the whole address thing at the front. You just start with Dear Sir or Madam. Make sure the punctuation is correct. Now, when you get the question for the formal letter, there's usually 3 parts, right? They'll give you a general problem. So there have been some problems with public transport in your area recently. So that's kind of a general topic. They will have an instruction: write a letter, okay, to who? The manager of the public transport company, right? So keep that in mind. This instruction will kind of help you determine the level of formality that's needed, right? So in this case, you're writing to manager of the public transport company. What kind of letter is it? There have been some problems, probably a letter of complaint, right? So you have to keep it very formal because you want them to pay attention to what you're saying. Sorry, there's someone brought up that, writing a letter in the academic test, that's a no. They're completely separate. The general training letter writing is only applicable to general training, and you won't find it at all in the academic test. Then after your instruction, like who you're supposed to write to, you are given 3 things to describe, to say. To describe the problems, explain how these problems affect the public, and suggest what changes could be made. Okay, so you now notice that they will give you at least 3 bullet points. You have to cover all the bullet points, right? Not covering all the bullet points means that you have not met the criteria in terms of your response. Okay, so please follow that. Okay. So let's have a look. Now, when you first begin, the first thing you do in a letter in your intro is to state the purpose of your letter. Dear Mr. or Mrs., Mr. whatever, Sir, Madam, I'm writing to you to what? To, comment on something. Cover all the bullet points fully. So as I said, if they ask you for 3 things, you must cover. So your response must fully answer each one of the 3 things, not more of the first one and less of the second one. You know what I mean? So the balance in terms of the fullness of your response has to basically be even among the 3. Maintain an appropriate tone throughout. So basically in the letter, the first thing you should determine is the formality. So is it formal or is it informal? Now, it's pretty simple. Anything that is not or write to your friend, right? If it says write to your friend to invite them to something, right? You know that will be less formal. But the minute it is anything else, like to a company, to a public, to or something like that, it's definitely formal, okay? What does that mean for the tone? So for formal letters, right, the tone has to be formal. So all the words you use are going to be more formal. So here's an example of stating your purpose. Dear Sir or Madam, I'm a resident of Newtown and I'm writing to draw your attention to recent problems with public transport in our area. Okay, so you stated the purpose. Briefly, the roadworks along Hill Road have led to long delays in bus services. Furthermore, the new weekend bus timetable has dramatically reduced the frequency of buses on Saturday mornings. Okay, so it's basically stating what the problems are. Okay. Now it says here, it said in the second part, what to describe how it affects people, right? So here it says, the effect of these actions becomes very obvious during peak hours on weekdays and the busy shopping hours on Saturday mornings. There's a high level of public concern about the situation. Public transport users in Hill Road find it now takes up to 20 minutes more to travel the length of the road. As well, shoppers who often travel by bus on Saturday mornings to shop in Newtown find it is now not worth the trouble, leading to a drastic downturn in retail trade in the town. So it's very specific. Now you can make up some of these things, right? The key is to give detail, right? To not be too generic. If you want a better score, use good words, like in this case, high level of public concern. So that's a nice sort of formal phrase. It says here, leading to a drastic downturn in retail trade. So drastic downturn, right? You kind of rhythmic there. It's saying that there was a decrease, but it's not just a bit of a decrease, but a drastic, like a dramatic decrease. Okay, so it's not a good thing, right? And then the third part was, may I, so it gives suggestions for what you want them to do. May I suggest that buses be rerouted along the Great East Road until roadworks on Hill Road are complete. I would also recommend a return to the old weekend bus timetable. I'm sure these steps would be warmly welcomed by both users of public transport and local shopkeepers. I look forward to receiving your response to my suggestions. Yours faithfully, and then your name, okay? So you notice how all 3 of those bullet points were covered. So you can almost do that in, 3 body paragraphs, 1 brief paragraph for each of those bullet points. Maybe the conclusion could be a little bit better. But what is the highest score for task achievement if you don't cover all the bullet points in your letter? Any guesses? You can check in your PDF notes in the writing task 1 descriptors. What is the highest score for task achievement if you don't cover all the bullet points? 5. Okay, Jane says 5. Anyone else? The answer is 4, actually. So it's even lower than a 5. So if you miss out any one of those bullet points and you don't answer to that, you can only get 4 in task achievement. All right, and a 4 will definitely pull down the rest of your scores in the other components. Okay, 4 is a very bad score. Okay, so don't leave out anything, right? Maintain an appropriate tone. So notice this letter is quite business-like. So use business kind of language, you know, if it's a workplace letter or it's a letter to a public facility or something or an institution. So phrases they use are like, I write to draw your attention to. Furthermore, there's a high level of public concern about, may I suggest, so we use modals when we're being polite, right? May I suggest. I would also recommend, right? So you make it sound very polite, right? You're not ordering people around, right? Just because it's a complaint letter doesn't mean you have to write it like a rant. Okay, so here's an example, and I believe you might have that in your pack as well, page 13. This is a sample of a 6.5. So if you want to know what you need to write, you can have a look at this, okay? And then the description here are things like it has a clear purpose, all the content's relevant. Bullet points are well covered, but could be more fully extended. So that's the trick to between the difference between a 6 and a 7, for example. Have you given enough details, right, for each of those bullet points that you're responding to? So that's what they mean here by more fully extended. Like if you just speak about it briefly, you will remain 6 or below for that part, okay? Vocabulary resource is large enough to allow some flexible, precise use. But there's still errors in word order, omission of prepositions and articles, you know, but not enough to make you not understand what the person's trying to say. So they were given a 6, somewhere around a 6, right? Here's another kind of question that you might get. Now this one, the first thing you see is write a letter to your friend. You know immediately that this would be informal. Now, when we say informal, it doesn't mean to use slang or be rude, right? You still, you know, but it just means you don't have to write it with big business phrases or something. An overseas friend wants to visit your country on holiday. Write a letter to your friend. In your letter, recommend the best time of year to visit and why. Okay, now notice this, best time of year to visit and why. So don't miss out the second part of the question. Describe the types of accommodation that your friend could choose. Say what you would like to show your friend in your country. So again, fully respond to this, right? Write at least 150 words. Okay, so here's a response to that, right? So you can kind of divide the paragraphs into the 3 bullet points if you want, if that helps you, okay? But you need, again, it says here, I was pleased to hear that you're coming to Brisbane. I'm writing to give you some information to think about before you come. So the purpose of the letter, right? But you see here, good phrases to use. I'm pleased to hear, let's see here, at the moment, unfortunately, somewhere affordable. So some of this vocabulary is good. Okay. So overall, what's our advice to you? Our advice to you is to analyze the task to look for more than one element in any bullet point, right? So as I pointed out, the bullet point might have two parts to it. Make sure you answer both things, okay? Okay, Yoshiro, I will get to that. When I start talking about task 2, you will find out the difference, okay? Now, check for plural forms in the bullet points. So describe the problems means you have to describe more than one problem, right? So make sure you do that because that can make you lose points that way. State the purpose of your letter in the first paragraph. Letters need paragraphs. Yes, all writing need paragraphs, right? So in all the writing in IELTS, you should never use point form or bullet points, right? everything should be in paragraph format. Politely round off, looking to the future. So your last in the letter, your last sentence should say something like, you know, I look forward to seeing you about this, or whatever, something to look forward to. Write in a style that's suitable, whether it's formal or informal. So determine that right away at the beginning. That will determine your tone, right? Avoid using same words as those given in instructions. So again, don't copy any words over. Start the letter as shown in the question, dear sir or madam. Don't include your address at the start. End the letter in the appropriate way, like yours faithfully. Okay. So any questions about task 1 for general training? Okay. Again, you can use your imagination, be very descriptive and specific. Okay, that helps. You know, fill in with the details. Do not take more than 20 minutes for the letter. Do not go over the 20-minute mark. Okay, so you need to practice writing task 1. For all the writing tasks, you should do a timed practice, right? So just sit down for 60 minutes, find a quiet place in your house or wherever, and just start writing and set your phone timer to 60 minutes, and then see how long it takes you, you know, record and stop yourself at the 60-minute mark to see whether you could finish the task 2 or not. That's the only way you're going to gauge how fast you can write. Okay, if you are doing the computer-based, you can practice typing in the computer, because, you know, obviously you have to get used to that, right? All right, we're going to talk about task 2 now. And task 2 for both general training and academic are pretty similar, so we're going to kind of discuss it together. So someone was asking, what's the difference between the task 1 thing? So now we know academic task 1 is analytical report writing kind of style. General training is writing formal or informal letters, right? Okay, so what do we do for task 2? They will give you some type of question that is debatable, right? Should people be allowed to smoke in public places? Well, they won't ask the question. They will give you a statement. Then they will ask you, what is your opinion? They might ask you to discuss it, or they might ask you to do a number of things with it, right? Basically, depending on the task, you may need to provide general factual information, provide a solution, so it could be problem solution, justify an opinion, evaluate evidence and ideas. Okay, so what do we mean by that? So here's an example, okay? You have to write 250 words. So it's almost double, not quite, but almost double the number of words that you do for task 1. And you have 40 minutes for this. So you should write at least, I mean, in my opinion, about 5 paragraphs, but I mean, they don't have to be super long paragraphs, but basically you need to give reasons for your answer and include any relevant examples. And this is where that part I told you, the difference between a 5 and 6 and a 7 and above is this ability to give concrete examples and give good descriptions with good adjectives, descriptive adjectives and things like that from your own knowledge and experience. What they're saying here, you don't need to memorize facts from somewhere, right? Basically just pull out things from what you know, like, so you know, the key is, for example, from what I have observed, and then you describe what you observed to make you think that way, right? So one type of question that you might get is what we call an opinion essay, right? So you are given a topic like children who are brought up in families that do not have large amounts of money are better prepared to deal with the problems of adult life than children brought up by wealthy parents. To what extent do you agree or disagree with this opinion? So you notice here that they give you the topic and it's in a statement. Then it says, to what extent do you agree or disagree with this opinion? So they don't just ask you, do you agree or disagree? And then yes, no. It says, to what extent do you agree or disagree? So you have to say how much you agree, how much you disagree. Okay, and then establish why. So here is an example of a band 8 response, right? I won't go into detail here, but it says, I do agree to the statement that children brought up in poor families are better prepared to deal with the problems of adult life. Now, this person has says here the rubric is copied in the opening paragraph, but when this is deducted from the overall word count, the response is not underlined. So the reason why they tell you not to copy words over, because they will subtract it from your overall word count. And for most people, after it's subtracted, you will come below the word count. And that's where you minus 1 or 2 band scores. Okay. All right, so if you want to know why this is an 8, you can read that. Here's another example. Some people believe the increasing popularity of shopping as a leisure activity is a positive trend. Others believe it is harmful to individuals. Now, the main topic is shopping, but do not look at it and go, oh, shopping, I'll just write about shopping, because you won't be answering the question if you just write about shopping. The question is not about shopping, it's about the effects of shopping on people. Is it positive or is it harmful to people? It says here, discuss both these views and give your opinion. So you have to discuss people who think shopping is a positive trend, and then shopping is harmful to individuals, and then what your own opinion is. So this is a classic 5-paragraph essay. Introduction, 1 paragraph for one view, 1 paragraph for the other view, 1 paragraph for your own view, and then a conclusion. Okay, so you see how you can get the paragraphing. So Russell says, do they minus the marks if you don't meet word count? Like I said, you will have at least 1 band score deducted. So they will, give you the overall, and then they will subtract the band scores. Okay, if you are significantly below the word count, they will deduct at least 2 band scores. So not a good idea to be underlined. I hope I'm clear on that in terms of word count. Okay. Now there's something else called the multi-part question essay. So this is a little more complex than your, what is your opinion kind of essay. It says here, again, the statement, shopping is becoming more and more popular as a leisure activity. So this is referring to shopping as and you should know the word leisure activity. However, some people feel that this has both positive and negative effects. Now, this doesn't tell you what to answer, right? Like you have to look at the questions. Why is shopping so popular? So you need to answer that question. Why is it popular? Shopping is popular because people get a feeling of euphoria when they spend money, something like that. Then you have to give an example, right? You can't just say that. You have to say why you think that. What effects does its increase in popularity have on individuals and society? Then you look at this second question. It's actually a 2-part question, right? What effects does its increase in popularity have on individuals? And what effects does its increase in popularity have on society, right? So on individuals, we can talk about people getting in debt due to, too much shopping, too much spending. And on society, what happens if a lot of people are in debt or, driven? Then you can talk about consumerism. Like, for example, if you're more academic, you're taking the academic test, you have to talk about consumerism and what a bad effect that, this sort of consumerist society has on, and then you can, say that the negative impacts, which is on environment and stuff like that, right? Okay, so there are lots of things you can talk about in this particular one. Can I state my views on? Yeah, so here's an example. This one is band 8 example. Okay, so you can look at that in your pack. So let's go over what the advice is generally. Allocate your time properly. Task 2 is worth twice as much as task 1. Decide on your position, express your views clearly, and provide support, examples, and evidence. So, you know, if you would say, well, you know, in my view, you know, shopping has a negative effect. For example, a friend of mine likes to, you know, do online shopping and, you know, something like that. So you can actually use real examples, right? What else? There's organize your ideas into paragraphs, each with a clear focus. So as I said, you can group it according to however you want. You can, you know, do the one view, another view, and then your view. You could do it depending on what the question is. Obviously, there's no one formula to how many paragraphs you write. It would depend on the question that you have to answer. Use a range of vocabulary and grammatical structure. This is really important. Make your sentences interesting. Don't just have short sentences, but have complex sentences. Your vocabulary, those of you especially doing academic, need to use academic words and phrases, right? So a little more sophisticated vocabulary. Analyze the task and write relevant content. What they mean is, like I said, don't just see the word shopping and then just start writing about shopping. You have to look at, you know, what you have to look at, what was I saying? Sorry, it's 4 a.m. here. Just analyze the task. So make sure you're answering to the question. Again, similar to task 1, where you have to make sure your response goes with whatever they're asking you. Use a variety of linking words to connect and sequence your ideas. Do not write in note form. Do not use headings. Do not put headings. This is not writing a report. No bullet points, right? That's kind of a lazy way of writing. Okay. And then check your work carefully. If you have a few minutes at the end, you know, sometimes that's helpful to catch little things, right? Okay. Okay, so any questions about the writing task 2? Anyway, I can always answer your questions in the, what do you call it? The live Q&A later. Okay. All right, so let's barrel along to talk about speaking. So somebody was just asking about that. So let's look at speaking. Speaking is often, you know, a good section to score for most people. Those of you who are already living or, you know, working in offices that are multinational and, you know, all using English as a form of communication, your speaking would be probably the easiest component to score, right? So let's have a look. So speaking will go by very quickly. Usually it's just before or just after your actual test, right? 11 to 14 minutes with 3 parts. And you will have a live, you know, face-to-face, one-on-one speaking with an examiner. Okay, so it says here there are 3 parts. The first part are questions about you and about yourself, you know, simple questions like, so you should be comfortable enough to describe, you know, where you live or describe what you're doing and, you know, your work. Just be very confident about those things. Now, if you are kind of unable to answer any of those things at length, then I would suggest rethinking whether you want to do the test. So make sure you can talk about things about yourself. Part 2, you will be given, okay, so the interesting thing about part 2 and 3 in the IELTS test is the topics are linked. So whatever you get to talk about in part 2, you will have to talk about that same topic in part 3. So that could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on if it's a topic you are familiar with or not. Okay. So part 2 is the part where you are given a booklet with the topic, and it's asking you to talk about something, and it will have at least 3 to 4 bullet points. You know, so it will say, give you a general question, and then you must say this, and then 3 or 4 things that you need to include. So in a way, that's kind of good because that gives you something to talk about. It's not completely free form. And 2 minutes goes by pretty quickly. Now, the key for this part is to take 1 minute. So you're given 1 minute to think about what you're going to say. And then you can make notes on a piece of paper. And then the examiner will give you 1 minute. Now, all this timing stuff, you don't have to worry about it because obviously, you know, it's hard for you to keep the time and try and answer questions. So the examiner will guide you in terms of the timing. So follow the examiner's lead when it comes to the timing. Do not assume anything. So do not stop. For example, if you know you're told in part 2 that you can start speaking now, just quickly start speaking. Do not guess where the 2 minute mark is, right? The examiner, just keep talking till the examiner says thank you and ask you a follow-up question, right? Follow the lead of the examiner, because if you guess, and some people have done that, I've seen that a lot, they'll say, okay, and then like, that's all, folks, something like that. But then it's not 2 minutes yet. And if you don't speak for the full 2 minutes, it's kind of showing you are a weak candidate, okay? Like you run out of words or something. Now the part 3 is a general discussion. So part 2, you are the person talking the whole time for 2 minutes. Part 3, you're expected to have a normal 2-way conversation dialogue with the examiner about that same topic. Of course, the examiner will ask you questions, but you know, you have to be comfortable enough to talk in a conversational way. These are the sections that we'll be looking at: fluency and coherence, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and pronunciation. Now, again, which is the one you can control the most, probably, or that's easiest to score? Take a guess. Someone asked in part 2, if you speak beyond the 2 minute time, you will not be allowed to speak past the 2 minute mark, because when it's 2 minutes, the examiner will stop you. Okay, so don't get angry or anything, because they are on a strict time schedule. You are not allowed to speak beyond 2 minutes. Okay. And you shouldn't be insistent on going past the 2 minutes, because that's not good. So which one do you think is the easiest? Some people say pronunciation. Okay, pronunciation is not easy to change, right? If you have been speaking with a certain accent or pronunciation, it is hard to change it. So people actually, you know, take a lot of effort to change their pronunciation. So a lot of times it's not something you can change quickly. Same thing with grammatical range and accuracy. We speak with errors. Even for native speakers, we speak with errors in our spoken language. And sometimes we don't even know we're making those kind of mistakes. Only other people hearing us can hear it. the key is to be fluent and coherent. Make sure that you keep talking, that you have no long pauses, even if it's to think of ideas. You know, it's terrible when you get people who, like, you ask a question and they sit there and they go, okay, and then stare into the air for like a whole minute or something, right? That is the worst thing you could do. That breaks up your fluency and coherence. That will give you a low score for that. Okay, so for fluency, I would say it doesn't matter if you make a mistake, you know, grammatical mistake or whatever, just keep going. Don't stop, because if you stop and then you get all nervous and you go, oh yeah, I just, you know, you start, what do we call that? Thinking about the mistake you made and then going over and over in your head. That's not good, because that will make you all nervous and everything. So if you make a mistake, just quickly get over it, keep going. Okay. Lexical resource. Okay, you can prepare for that. As I said, you know, watch YouTube or whatever, watch English programs on different topics, you know, to gather more vocabulary. Okay. All right, let's watch a video of this lady from Colombia. This is the part 3 discussion, the two-way discussion. So we don't get to see the part 2, but we can gather from this particular interaction roughly, you know, how she's doing. So just sit back right now and just watch this, and then we'll kind of talk about why they gave her a band 7. Okay. Okay, let me know if you have trouble hearing this. Uh-oh, is it not playing? Just give it a minute. Wait. Okay, let me just stop sharing because it doesn't seem to be. I think I will play it first and then see if I can keep it going. Oops, I had it. What happened? Okay, never mind. Just give me a second. Whoops, Lilette, it doesn't seem to be working. I don't.
I'm sorry, Mei is speaking, right?
I can't. I can't. I keep clicking on play and it's not happening. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because of where I am. Because it usually works, right? Sorry.
Give me a second.
Let me see. I don't know. Oh, it's spinning. Okay, right now I have the circle of death on that. Yeah, I can't seem to get the video to play. Just now it, okay, maybe Control Alt. Task Manager. Sorry, I'm just going to get out of this. Coordinator, Fiber Acrobat Tray. Zoom meeting, what's this? PowerPoint? No. Okay, let me see here. I'm going to shut that down. Okay, I'm going to restart this. Give me a second. Okay, sorry about the delay. You can, if there's any questions people have, I can help you to answer.
Is it for Alessandra?
Yeah, Colombia, the lady from Colombia.
Okay, let me try if I can play it from my side.
Yeah, wait, okay, let me see if I'm gonna try again, but I don't know why. Nope, it's not running.
Okay, let me try it from my side.
Thanks, sorry about that too.
No worries. This is it, right?
wait, just let me get back to the, I'm loading. I don't know if there's something wrong with my internet or something.
Will at your screen, it's coming up, but it's like sharing.
Yep, give me a second. I think I need to get out of the meeting for a while. Plus, my PowerPoint presentation is not responding at all.
Okay.
Give me a second, please. Oh, shame. Okay, I think I'm back. Can you see my screen?
Yes, now I can see it.
Sharing my sound. Can you see my screen?
Yes, now I can see it.
Sharing my sound.
So we've been talking about a well-known person.
Yes, now I can see it.
So we've been talking about a well-known person.
Yes, now I can see it.
So we've been talking about a well-known person.
Yeah, it's okay. Maybe just keep your mic off. I don't know. But that's weird why I can't open this too.
Okay.
So I'm gonna.
So we've been talking about a well-known person that you like or admire, and I'd like to discuss with you one or two more general questions related to this. Let's consider first of all being in the public eye about a well-known person that you like or admire. What are some of the advantages and disadvantages of being famous?
The advantages are the first that you will get really rich, and fame actually helps you. The advantages are the first that you will get really rich, and fame actually helps you. The advantages are
Give me a second. I'm so sorry about it. I'm not sure what's going on. Shall I try again, May? I'm sorry. I cannot hear you.
Yeah, maybe we share the link later.
Yeah, so what I can do is, Lilith, I can continue with the, I'm going to try the listening and then maybe see if we can pull that video.
Just the video, right?
Yeah, I don't know why it's not working because it usually works, right?
Exactly.
It could be
Same for
because I'm
me.
in North America, but I have no idea why it's not working
The
here.
video, right?
But, oh, wait, I saw something.
Yeah,
I don't know why it's not working because it usually works, right?
Exactly.
It could be
Same for
because
me.
I'm in North America, but I have no idea why it's not working
The
here.
video, right? Okay, shall I try again?
Okay, maybe you try one more time. Then
Okay, let me try again.
I'm going to mute myself because maybe I'm causing the echo.
Yeah, please, thank you.
So we've been talking about a well-known person that you like or admire, and I'd like to discuss with you one or two more general questions related to this. Let's consider first of all being in the public eye. Yeah. What are some of the advantages and disadvantages of being famous?
The advantages are that first that you will get really rich, and the fame actually helps you because you don't have to pay for a lot of stuff. They will give you free dresses and free stays in the hotels, free meals, free everything. So actually you're saving money plus the money that you're earning. And the disadvantages are that being a public eye, you lose your privacy. You will always be in the eye of the paparazzi and people, and if someone recognizes you, they will take a picture of you, and that's the end of the relaxed evening. So I think that it will be a really big disadvantage.
Do you think if a celebrity accepts those endorsements, do you think they lose their honesty?
I don't think that they will lose their honesty, but maybe it will change them. They will have to accept the environment that they are living into right now. So if they get famous and they are not selling their soul to the devil, I don't think that they are that bad. I think that it's just human, and if they like it, well, better for them.
Can you talk about how the media reports on famous people in your country?
The reports of the media in my country, they are like having half serious news and half entertainment. So the reports are often, but not that often. They don't have like big news if Shakira gets married or not. It's like a small news, but it gets bigger with the people, not with the media, because people start to talking about the news, not the media makes it big.
Do you think more time should be spent on current events and political news?
I think so, but I think that we also need a rest from the serious stuff, and we also need entertainment. So it will be a balance, because only bad news is not good for anybody. So I think that half and half it will be better.
Why do ordinary people find the lives of celebrities so interesting?
I think because if they see somebody that successful and rich failed or getting dumped or in jail, I think that we feel better about ourselves, because we think, okay, we might not be rich, but we are better than them. So I think that's why we like it so much, to see that kind of news.
So you think most people want to see that celebrity fail?
Maybe, or maybe depends. If you don't like anybody, you will like them fail. But if you really support one person, you will like them to be like really successful.
Let's talk about celebrity culture. How does the media use famous people in advertising?
In a lot of ways, because if people follows one person, for example, Justin Bieber right now in the Super Bowl, uh, the media will use it and publicists will use him as long as it takes, because if he's famous, the money return will be really high.
Do you think people want to buy a product because the celebrity endorses that?
It depends of the target, but if it's a smart target, it won't be happen like this. But if it's like a child or teenagers, they will follow anything if their leaders does it.
You mentioned Justin Bieber. Are there any negative effects of young people becoming famous?
Maybe not for the people that follows the famous people, but I think that it will be really bad for that poor guy. It's being famous at that young age. You don't know what is good and what is bad, and they will always turn bad.
Thank you very much. This is
Okay.
the end of the speaking test.
Thank you.
See you, Mei.
Thanks, Lilette. Thanks so much
No
for that. I will
problem.
need a second for me to bring up my screen. Oh, no. Sorry, just excuse, I'm having some trouble after. Oh, okay, here it is, right? So the next screen indicates the reasons why she got the 7, the band score of 7. So I'm just going to put that up now. Okay, so her biggest strength was her vocabulary, and obviously her fluency was pretty good. You know, she had strong phrases. You can use idiomatic phrases now, not slang, but idiomatic idioms like lose your privacy, selling your soul to the devil, getting dumped. So, you know, that shows a good command, right? Grammatical range and accuracy. She had a few, you know, mistakes, but other than that, she used complex sentence structure. Her pronunciation was fine, except the influence of her mother tongue, which is Spanish, obviously. She said young for young and so on. But she was easy to follow. You know, there were no parts where we didn't understand what she was trying to say. So if you want a 7 and above, you can't make too many grammatical mistakes. And your pronunciation should be clear. And someone asked about the speed of speaking. There was someone who asked a question about how fast or how slow. Basically, you have to, English is a much slower spoken language than other languages, right? If you go too fast, people might not understand, you know, because all your words slur together. So do not let your, you know, your native language influence how you speak English. You should speak at a normal, steady pace. You shouldn't be too fast and you shouldn't be too slow. If you go too slow, then it means you're hesitating or you are trying to figure out the words, and that will affect your fluency. So if you speak slowly, the highest you can get is a 6. Okay, so yeah, but don't, you know, do sort of the blah, 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 blah kind of talking, because that also makes it difficult for listeners, right? All right, so and of course, if you're doing the, you know, speed talking out of nervousness, you have to actually practice speaking a lot and not going fast when you're nervous. So try to calm yourself before the test. You know, make sure you're relaxed, like don't get nervous or anything. Listen, read, and think in English before the test. Make sure you speak at a steady rate. So as I said, not too fast, not too slow. Now, in the part 2, you're given 1 minute to make notes. So please take that opportunity. The 1 minute is very short. So by the time you pick up your pencil and put it to the piece of paper they give you, you know, almost, you know, the time might be up, you know. Then the minute the examiner says, start speaking now, you should start speaking. Don't hesitate, like, go, you know, something like that, right? Now, using natural fillers like, let me think, but do not say things like, how do you say that, or ask questions back. Like, I don't, like, what does that mean? Don't ask those kind of questions. Do not have fillers like, you know, all those things will cause your fluency to be low. Do not sound flat, use intonation and stress. So if you're asking a question, whatever, and pause at the end of sentences. You can do a natural pause, not a long pause, but make sure that you do, you know, you have phrasing, right? We call it phrasing. And don't worry about grammar mistakes, just keep going. As I said, the key is to keep the fluency. If you can get a high score on the fluency, that is very good, because a lot of times people can score high on fluency, but really low on pronunciation or on grammar, right? Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I mean, there are some people who speak English with a lot of errors, but they can speak very fluently, right? Give more details about each of the points you make. So be descriptive. As I said, just like in the writing, you need to give concrete examples, give reasons for why you think certain way, giving reasons, right? Weigh up both sides of a question and give examples. Rehearse work and study and where you live questions, but sound natural, right? So the ones about, oh, where do you work? Where do you live? You know, this, you have to describe. So one of the ways you can practice is to just think about where you're living, the room, the house, the building, and the surrounding, you know, landscape of the place that you live, that kind of thing. Your neighborhood, you know, can you describe your neighborhood, where you live? Give an opinion. In my view, as far as I'm concerned, generally speaking, you know, words, phrases that indicate your opinion. Now, some people were asking about topics. In IELTS, it could be any topic that, you know, we come across day to day, right? Education, health and fitness, travel, transport. Like transport could be, you know, like describe, you know, the transportation in your country. Now, you have to then have something to say about that. Leisure, and make sure you know the word leisure. That appears quite a lot in IELTS, right? Leisure just means like free time activities. Communication, maybe trees, animals, you know, anything like that, okay? Animals could be wild animals, or it could be about pets. So you have to be able to distinguish all those things, right? It could be any topics. Now, of course, they won't ask you highly specialized topics like engineering or something like that, right? But they will ask you about technology. Then you have to say something about technology in your country, technology in your home, right? So there's lots of things, internet, you know, social media, you know, how do you use social media, right? Okay. They will also ask you questions to describe your relationships with people. So make sure you have examples of those, right? Like older people, younger people, you know, people in your family, whatever, okay? From Wayne Miyun, I keep for about 30 seconds. What do you mean If you say too many times, it's not good. Yeah, just try to reduce that, okay? Oh, I just said it. See, we all do it all the time. So yeah, we tell people not to do it, but you know, we do it all the time. Some people say, like in North America, we say, you know, a lot. So every culture has their own things that we say as fillers, but okay, somebody asked about, kindly repeat the question, please. You should not be asking them, the examiner, that like every question that, you know what I mean? Because that would obviously show that you have a problem with listening, or maybe with vocabulary. Maybe you don't understand the words that are being said to you. That's why you keep asking to repeat the question. If you do have, what do you call it, legitimate listening disabilities, you have to tell the administrators ahead of time so that whatever compensation that you can have for the test, that be noted, okay? With speaking, any one of you have speaking problems as well, like stuttering or anything that is medically, you have medical certification for, I believe that you can ask for assistance. So I'm not sure, is that right, Lilette? Like if people have medical, like, because some people say, oh, I can't, I don't know.
Yes, May, if they have any particular disabilities, then they can apply for an IELTS test at least 3 months in advance.
Yeah, fillers are hard. Fillers are, everybody uses them, but you just have to know this is a test. Maybe for the time being, if the 14 minutes you're in the room doing the speaking test, just focus on giving the answers and not using fillers when you're thinking, because sometimes we think of the then you're trying to think of the next thing to say, right? So yeah, it's a hard thing to do, but again, practice speaking with someone without using fillers for 14 minutes and see what happens, right? Okay, so that we come to the end of the speaking component. Now we'll head to the listening. So sorry, I'm speed this up a little because so listening. Now, listening is a tough one for some people. Yeah, for sure. Listening, you will only hear the recording once. So keep that in mind, because I know that there are a lot of academic tests, English tests, where listening, where, things are played at least 2 times, right? But in IELTS, it's only played once. What does that mean? You have to be very well rested, relaxed, and very focused when you do the listening test. Okay, just focus on what you hear, on getting clues about who is speaking, whether they're talking about, right? You cannot focus on mistakes that you make. Like if you think you have the wrong answer, and then you cannot fix anything while the recording is being played. Okay, so if you do make a mistake, just keep following the recording. Don't stop to fix something, right? Just keep following the recording, and then you can fix it later. Go back afterwards and fix that question. Okay, 30 minutes, 4 sections, 40 questions. What are the 4 sections? The first part will be a conversation in an everyday social situation. So, it could be anything, like a bunch of just 2 people in a store, a customer and a shopkeeper. They could be at a bank, anything like that, okay? 2 is a talk in an everyday situation. So a talk would be like one person giving information to a bunch of other people, right? But it's a one-way thing, just one person delivering information. It could be a tour guide in the gallery. It could be a salesperson telling you about a product, one person talking. The conversation should be at least 2 people, sometimes 3 people. Number 3 is a conversation in an educational or training setting. So educational training setting means it would be on a university or college campus. Maybe students are talking about their project, or students are talking to their professor about what to do for something, right? It could be any of those. Number 4, a lecture or talk on a topic of general interest. So a lecture, basically a professor talking about his topic, his or her topic, right? So that's more academic. Number 4 is, so you notice that it goes from, okay, in IELTS, there's a trend. They give you the easier things at the beginning, and then it gets progressively more difficult. That occurs with the reading. So the reading passages, the first passage will be the easiest, second will be harder, and then the third will be the most difficult. Same thing here in listening. The first 2, the conversation in everyday situation and the talk in an everyday situation, are easier. And then the 3 and the 4, their topics might be a little more difficult. Okay. So just keep that in mind. For paper-based, you're given an additional 10 minutes to transfer your answers. So do not worry about transferring the answers while the recording is being played. Okay. But those of you doing computer delivered, you just follow along and key in the answers. So, all right. So we have a sample here. We can try to do this together. So I will try to play the recording. Again, I hope this works. So you have this either from your masterclass pack on page 22 or what else? You can follow along with this, just have a pencil and paper and just put number 1 to 8. We're only going to do the 8 questions, okay? Notice here it says complete the form below, write 1 word and or a number for each answer, okay? So what does that mean? 1 word and or a number. So your answers can have 1 word or 1 word and a number. That's it. That's the only choice you have. You cannot have 2 words. So keep that in mind. Okay, so I'm going to play this and I hope you can hear my recording. It's not playing. Sorry, Lila, I'm gonna have to rely on you.
Sure. I'll play it now.
It's probably because I'm in North America, but that's kind of a silly reason. Okay. Oh, I have to stop sharing. Wait, or you can control it. Wait, stop sharing.
Sure.
Oh, I just, yeah, there you go. Okay, I'm gonna mute myself.
Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4.
Hello, Theatre Royal Plymouth?
Oh, hello. I'd like to make a booking, please.
Yes. What is it you want to see?
The Imposter.
Right. And which day did you want to come?
Friday the 25th.
Just a moment and I'll check availability on the computer. Oh, sorry, we're fully booked for that performance.
Oh dear. What about the following day then?
The 26th? Yes, that's okay. We've got 2 performances on that day. One at 3:30 and one at 7. Which would you prefer?
Oh, the later one, please.
Mm-hmm. How many people?
Well, there are 4 of us.
Are there any concessions? Any children?
Oh, I'm not sure. My daughters are 15 and 12. Do they get concessions?
Only the 12-year-old, I'm afraid. So that's 1 child and 3 adults. Any idea where you'd like to sit? Stalls or circle?
Tickets
for the stalls are a bit more expensive. £12 for adults and £8.50 for children. The circle costs £10.50 and £6.50.
Do you get a good view from the circle?
Oh, yes. And in fact, we've got some seats left at the front if you'd like those.
Right. We'll go for those then.
Right. That's seats A21 to 24 then. They're very good seats.
That sounds fine.
So let's see, that comes to £38 altogether for the tickets. How do you want to collect them? Shall I put them in the post? They'd be sent today by first-class mail, and there'd be an additional charge of £1 to cover postage and administration. Or do you want to get them from the box office yourself?
Oh, yes. Could you send them, please?
No problem. That'll be £39 altogether.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 5 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 5 to 10.
Could I just take your card details? What kind of card is it? Visa? Switch?
MasterCard.
Okay. And the number?
It's 3290 5876 4401 2899.
2899. Okay. And the name on the card, please.
It's Mr. J. Whitten. WHITTON.
N for never or M for mother?
N for never.
Thank you. And now I've nearly finished, but I just need your address and postcode.
Yes, it's 42 South Street,
Okay. Is that Plymouth?
London.
And the postcode?
It's SW2 5GE.
That's fine then. The ticket should be with you tomorrow. Is there anything else I can do for you?
Yes, I was wondering if I could get regular information about what's on.
Certainly. I can just add your name to our mailing list. Would that be okay?
That would be very good. Yes, please. Oh, and there is something else, sorry. One of our group is hard of hearing, and I've heard that you can supply special headphones.
That's right. As long as you tell us in advance, we can always do that. I'll book those for you now, and you can just collect them from the box office before the show.
Thanks very much for your help.
No problem. Thank you for calling.
Thank you. Bye.
You're on mute now.
Thanks, Lilette. All right, just give me a minute to share my screen. Okay, so here are the answers. So let's go through them together. All right, so let's have a look. So remember, write one word and or a number for each answer, or, so the date is the 26th or just 26th. Time is written either one of these ways. Seats in the circle. Seat row is A, so it can be a capital A or a small a, 21 to 24. MasterCard. Now, the key with MasterCard is the name of a company, so it's a capital M at the front. Number, okay, try to listen in chunks, like the first four, then the next four, and the next four. That will probably be helpful. Whitten, so you notice that she spells out the last name, capital W, because it's a person's name. Okay, if you don't have the capitals for personal names and for names of companies and so on, you will not get the mark, okay, even if the answer is correct. Number 8 is headphones. Now notice headphones is one word, okay, because it says you're right one word and or number. So if you have head space phones, you won't get the mark for that, okay? So how was that? So you have to be prepared to get a variety of accents in the listening. You could have everything from a North American accent to, in this case, was a British accent. You might get an Australian accent or other kinds of accents. So try to familiarize yourself by listening to clips on YouTube, go to news sites or something and listen to clips of people speaking. And that should help you with your listening, okay? Listen to TED Talks, right? That kind of thing always helps. Okay. So what should you do? Use your time to read the questions to see the topics before they start the recording. Underline keywords to help you focus on the questions if it's a paper-based. Think of synonyms to help you predict likely content. Questions follow the recording order, so keep going. Stick to the word limit. Don't copy across extra words. So as I said, if they say no more than one word and or number, then you should not have more than one word. Listen to the intonation and the phrasing to help you understand what they're trying to say. Okay, so So the answer, so let's have a look. Let's review some of the things that we've been talking about. Basically, make the most of every opportunity to use English, because the more you use it, the better you get at it. And speak with native speakers wherever you can. Set targets for your preparation. Choose academic or general training. Know how you'll be scored so you can study the criteria. They're also published online, the public version of the band scores. IELTS preparation courses, sorry, let me remove this. Focus more on test taking than on language skills. So if you want to improve on IELTS, you should learn a little bit about, test taking specifically for the test, but the rest of it, in order to improve, you need to improve your language skills in general. So I know people don't like to hear that, but that's what you need to do. Read books in English, watch programs in English, listen to stuff, right? Okay. So every bit counts as you work towards your language skills. And IELTS 7 represents thousands of hours of learning and using English. So it's not easy to get a 7. Take a long-term approach. Anything you do in English will help you to improve your language skills. Push yourself every day, everywhere. Now, if you do the test once and you don't meet the 7 or whatever required score you have, don't sign up for the test the next day, right? You have to improve your skills before you go and sign up for the next time. Otherwise, you would be, you could improve only minimally, right? If you take it the next month or something. So just make sure you try to improve overall, okay? Now, this part are some resources you can go to prepare, like IELTSessentials.com. But there are lots of, examples online that you can practice. Now, some are better than others. A lot of the tests, examples and stuff are prepared just by ordinary people. So look for things that are published by Cambridge, which publishes IELTS, right? If you want a good book, there's a book by, is it Vanessa Jakeman, which is published by Cambridge, and it has practice tests that you can do. So I would suggest, even if your English is good, to at least run through test practice at least once or twice, right, before you go for the test. Because sometimes you can lose marks just because you don't know what is expected. Okay. There's this service provided by this website, IELTS Progress Check, but I think you have to pay, like they give you a full report after you do the test, but I think you need to pay $50 or something. So if you feel like you need a complete sort of experience of the test, then you're welcome to try this out. Okay. And if you don't have time to do any other preparation, it'd probably be a good idea to do that. Okay. All right. Here we've arrived at the end of the workshop. So thank you to those of you who have stuck around right to the end. I hope that you found it helpful. But now, we're opening up to questions from anyone. So please feel free to ask your questions. And I think there will be some moderation. So I will wait for the moderators to tell me which questions to answer, but please definitely ask your questions. Okay, so those of you, we've come to an end, and thank you so much. I'm not sure where everyone's from, but can I get some comments in the chat about where you're from, where everybody's joining us from? I would love to know which countries. Okay, great. Philippines, Vietnam, Singapore. So somebody from Belarus, Ethiopia. Welcome. And yes, and Dubai. That's great. Iran, someone from Iran. Welcome. Oh, someone from Libya. That's and Myanmar. I think that's great. That's great. That's great to see so many people. I'll put my country in. I am usually in Singapore, but am now in Canada.
Okay, May, would you like to proceed with the live Q&A now?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. So for those who are asking, especially from Philippines, before we begin the live Q&A, you will have I just got a confirmation from IELTS Philippines, IDP IELTS Philippines, that the speaking test will be conducted via video call. So that means your IELTS speaking examiner will be at another test venue, and you will be at another test venue as a test taker. Yep. So that's for IDP Philippines speaking test. So for those who have any burning question or any pending question, just raise your hand and then we will allow you to unmute your mic. Okay, first one, let's go to Nur Amin. Hi, Nur Amin. Please unmute your mic. Hi, Nur Amin. Are you still with us? I can see that you raised your hand and okay, I think you're on. Hi, Nur Amin.
Hi, sorry, it was a mistake. I didn't realize that, but thank you for the session.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, now let's go to Odi Panjaitan. Hi, Odi. You may now unmute your mic. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Audi. I had a question in the Q&A section regarding the listening test. I've done a mock-up test on like some website, but I haven't taken the IELTS test before. But I was wondering if the phone numbers must be in the format of said country, because when I did the mock-up test on one of these websites, my answer was incorrect because it wasn't in the format of using like a plus area code and then not 3 numbers and then dash 4 numbers and then dash like that. So I was wondering if in the real IELTS test, if the listening part really focuses on the format. If you don't have a dash, then the answer is incorrect. Thank you. That's all. That's my only question.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know, Lilith, would you be able to answer that? Because I'm not sure if that would be, it would be affected. I would think not, but.
It's not unless it's mentioned during the listening test. I think the question is under the listening test, right, Audi?
Yeah, I think if in the sheet, the listening test sheet, it has spaces and then, hyphens somewhere, then you should follow whatever it shows on there. If it doesn't, then you can just write the string of numbers, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Audi. Let's go to Vita Marie Bagayan.
Hi, Lilith. I was asking the question a while ago on the chat box. I think it was just I couldn't read it anymore. I booked the test on the 4th of June. However, there's no time for that exam, for that test. It isn't indicated. I tried to find a different IDP website. I couldn't find the exact time. So I'll be taking it in the Philippines.
Okay, would you mind to please share which part of the Philippines will you be taking your IELTS test?
It's the Sapphire Road, Ortigas.
Ortigas, so it must be in Marco Polo as well. I'm not really sure. All right. So
Definitely,
basically all paper-based tests, be it in the Philippines or Singapore, the listening, reading, and writing will begin from 9 o'clock in the morning up to 12 to 12:30 in the afternoon. However, you should be at the test venue at least an hour before the test, at before 9 a.m. for registration. That means we need to capture your finger scan as well as your photo before taking or sitting for the test. And then for your
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and then for your speaking test, you should receive an email from the IELTS team, from the IELTS operation teams, at least 2 days before the test, the latest.
2 days before. Okay. How come when I book the test for the 4th of June, there's no time, but when I look at the other dates, there's a specific time, like some exams are 2 p.m., some exams starts at 1 p.m.
Okay.
I'm just a bit worried. I just want to make sure that I get it right because I'm traveling 12 hours away.
I understand.
I'm quite far from Manila, so I want to get the dates and the time right because I don't want to be late.
No problem. I can assure you that paper-based IELTS or IELTS for UKVI will always begin from 9 o'clock in the morning. If it's on June 4th, then 9 o'clock on June 4th. So be there an hour before. Yes, and then I will also inform, thank you for letting us know. I will also provide your feedback to the IELTS team in Manila. Yeah, to complete, maybe there was just some minor hiccup or error when they published the test dates for the month of June.
Lovely. Okay.
Thank you.
The email address and the number that you have written on the website, when you book your test, it isn't working. Can you just type in, maybe share the right contact details just in case I have other questions or something like that, just in the chat box, so I could just get the exact number?
Sure, Vita, I'll share it with you shortly.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you so much for your information. Thank you so much for all the information.
Thanks, Vita.
Thank you, May, as well. Really good class.
Thank you. Thanks for your question. Yeah.
All right, now let's go to Julius Senyara.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I would just like to know that I'm going to be taking computer-based test on May 20, and then I would like to know if we are allowed to use pen and paper during the listening, reading, and writing on computer-based test.
Okay, I can answer that, May. So for computer, for IELTS and computer, you will be given a log-on sheet, and then you can use that log-on sheet as your scratch paper, and you will be given a pencil as well.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that would be all. Thank you so much for this very productive class.
You're most welcome.
Thank you, Julius. So now let's go to Joseph Macapagal. Hi, Joseph. All right, Joseph.
Hi, ma'am. Can you?
Oh yeah,
Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes. Go ahead.
Just an additional question regarding listening test. On paper-based exam, if we can list down notes or words mentioned while we're listening.
For the paper-based, you will have the test questions on the booklet, and you can write on that.
Okay, it's clear. That's all, ma'am. Thank you.
Computer-based, I don't think you have anything to, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. I'm not sure if Vita has another question because, hey Vita, do you have another question? Or you just accident? Oh, all right. A lot to talk. Okay, you may now unmute your mic.
Sorry, I have another question. I just thought about it while I was looking at my list of questions on my paper. Yeah, on the listening, because I've taken the exam years and years ago, way back in London. On the listening part, I know that we didn't have. Is it the same now that are we going to be given any headphones, or is it like a loudspeaker and all of us in one room. Is it the same or has it changed? What I'm trying to ask is that are we gonna be given a headphones, or what's the setup? Has it changed or not really?
Okay, let me answer that one, May. Currently, for those test takers who will be taking the test in the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam, they do provide headphones for the listening test for IELTS on paper. For Indonesia, Malaysia, Cambodia, and the rest of the countries in Southeast Asia, including Myanmar, they are still using loudspeaker for the listening test. Did I answer your question, Vita?
Sorry, my internet got disrupted. So Philippines, we don't have any headphones. Is that correct?
Philippines, they provide headphones.
They provide headphones. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we have headphones provided. Number two, I have another question for the reading section. When I asked the question on the chat box a while ago, I was asking, because I know for the listening section, you're given 10 minutes to transfer your answers on a paper. On the reading section, are we given the same time, like time to sort of transfer or check your answers when you transfer on the answer sheet, or are we going to answer it straight on the answer sheet? Am I making sense? Because I was given 2 answers a while ago. I had the screenshot, so I was a bit confused.
All right. For the reading test, there won't be any extra time to transfer your answer to the answer sheet. So you only yes, okay. You're only given 60 minutes to answer the question for the reading test. That's all.
Okay, I see. So straight away, I will have to transfer everything on the answer sheet. I just want to make sure that I got that correctly.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for answering all my questions.
Thank you. Now let's go to Agus Firmansha. Hi, Agus.
Yeah.
Agus, go ahead.
Yeah, I am here. I'm listening.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Ask your question. Yeah.
Yeah, talking about this material, this is the newest one for me, but actually I need to practice more, since maybe I just had an idea related to my sort of proposal of my dissertations. That's it.
Sorry, what is your question about IELTS?
About IELTS. I'm just not getting used to use IELTS. Usually I use TOEFL. So,
yeah, they're very different tests, so you can't use your TOEFL skills to do IELTS.
Yes, of course, it's too different from me. I just need to practice more. But according to my best of knowledge, is it the score of 7 or 7.5 is the highest one of IELTS test?
No, 9. No. 9 is the highest, which is almost native speaker level.
Oh, I see. How about for
sorry?
For the PhD degree, mostly in influence, what score that we should reach? Yeah.
No, the score that you need would depend on which university you're applying for. So your university will tell you that you need, let's say, an 8 overall and 8 for each component, like listening, reading, speaking, and writing, right? Like some universities tell you that each component has to be a certain number, right? Like some others will just say the global score, like overall averaged out. If you get 8 across, some can be 7.5, some 8.5, something like that, right? But there are others who say that, okay, all 4 things must be minimum 8.
Minimum 8.
So, yeah, but you need to check with the program that you're applying for and the university. Okay.
Okay.
Even
that is
even
my
the
question.
The degree programs have different requirements. So if you're doing law or medical school, they may have an 8 and above kind of requirement. But if you do engineering or something more numbers based, maybe they will have a lower score like 7, 6.5 or 7. So you have to check with each faculty.
Oh, okay, okay. Okay. Thank you very much for the
You're welcome.
answer, yeah. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Agus. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, Agus. So far, no further question, but before we finally end our workshop, I just would like to answer this question about headphone for the IELTS on computer. So for IELTS on computer, definitely all the venues globally are using headphones. And then is there a breakdown? Is there a break between paper, like reading and writing are different sections? So there won't be, I think you're asking about a toilet break or bathroom break. There won't be any toilet break, especially during the listening test, while the papers are being collected, while the instructions are being given, and during the last 10 minutes of the test. It's exactly the same, be it IELTS on paper or IELTS on computer. You may, however, you may visit the toilet, go for a toilet break once the test begins. So let's say, for example, you're about to begin the reading test, and the script reader finally announced you have 60 seconds. You may now begin the test. Then that's the only time you can ask for a bathroom break. Yep. So I think that's all for now. And thank you so much, everyone. But before that, Mei, any final advice for our participants today?
No, but as I said, just basically, you know, if the test is coming up soon and you don't have a lot of time, then just at least run through some practice tests, you know, once or twice. Do timed practice, so make sure you are doing it within the time limits given for the test so that you are familiar. And if not, as said, you need to improve your skills overall, you know, because all the vocabulary, everything ties together, right? You're listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So while you do targeted practice, that's important. You should also try to improve in all areas, you know, to get your fluency improved. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us from all over the world, and I feel very privileged to, you know, be able to have an audience from, you know, so wide and far, near and far, you know. so thank you for that. So thanks, Lilith, and thanks to Lilith and Yanis and Wei for helping out with the moderation and stuff. So yeah, I'll turn it back to you, Lilith. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone. And yes, thank you, by the way, to my co-moderators tonight. So Janice from Indonesia, Wei from Myanmar, and also just I think about 5 minutes or 10 minutes before after we begin, and Mute from Thailand also join us. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Mei, for staying with us despite that it's early morning in your location right now. I think it's around 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. now.
About there. Yeah, 5 a.m.
Please, yeah, please get some more sleep. Yeah.
I'll try.
And yeah, thank you so much to all those who joined with us, who stayed until I think it's about 2.5 hours now. Thank you so much. And we hope you have a lot of takeaways from this session. And if you have any further question, do drop an email to us and we will reply on your queries accordingly. All right, that's all for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Lilith.